Almost every CFD run is a march through time. Even a steady-state solve is usually a march in disguise, a field step forward until it stops changing. At every step, you make one quiet decision that drives both cost and stability. Do you build the next step from what you already know, or from what you're still solving for? That single choice, explicit or implicit, separates a run that converges in a handful of steps from one that crawls through millions or blows up. Strip a solver down to its core. You know the field right now, at time level n, and you want it one step later, at n+1. The governing equation hands you the rate of change, built from the spatial terms, the fluxes and diffusion between neighboring cells. To take the step, you have to evaluate those spatial terms. Here's the fork. Do you evaluate them using the field you already have at level n or the field you're still trying to find at n+1? Everything else follows from that one choice. Let's make it concrete. Heat on a bar, a real solver, not a sketch, and we try it both ways. Take the spatial term at the level you already know, level n, then the new value of a cell is just its old value, plus a correction built entirely from numbers already in hand. No system to solve, nothing to wait on. Each cell updates on its own with a little arithmetic, that's explicit, and it's wonderfully cheap per step. Here's a real run, a heat pulse spreading 80 small steps, exactly as it should. But there's a catch. The update only looks at a cell and its immediate neighbors, so information can crawl just one cell per step. Nudge the time step past the limit, and the scheme tries to move heat farther than its stencil can reach. Watch what actually happens. Same solver, time step bumped by half. The errors don't merely grow, they amplify, step over step, and the solution explodes, past 2 million, before it returns a nan. Explicit is only conditionally stable. For diffusion, the diffusion number, alpha, times the time step, over the cell size squared, has to stay below 1/2. Now make the other choice. Evaluate the spatial term at the new level, n+1. It looks like a tiny change, and it transforms the problem. A cell's new value now depends on its neighbor's new values, and those are unknown too. Every cell is tangled with the ones beside it, so you can't solve one in isolation. You have to solve them all at once, as a coupled system, a matrix equation, every single step. That's the price of implicit, a linear solve, where explicit had one line of arithmetic. What you buy is stability. Because the whole field is coupled and solved together, its numerical reach is the entire mesh, and nothing can outrun it. Same heat pulse, same end time, but at a step 10 times larger than explicit could survive. 6 steps instead of 80, and it stays perfectly stable. Backward Euler is unconditionally stable. You don't lose stability, you lose a little time accuracy, which is a different thing. Hold that thought. Here it is in symbols. Explicit, the new value at a cell equals the old value, plus the diffusion number times the curvature of the field. That curvature is the left neighbor minus twice the center, plus the right neighbor, all at the old level. Every term on the right is known, so the new value just falls out. Implicit puts that same curvature at the new level. Move the unknowns to one side, and the 3 new values, left, center, and right, sit locked together in one equation. Write one per cell, and you get a tridiagonal matrix, a single system you solve once for the whole new field. Same physics, same curvature. The only difference is whether the unknown stands alone on the left or sits buried among its neighbors. The same story shows up for convection, a pulse simply carried along by the flow. The natural explicit scheme is upwind. Each cell takes from the one upstream. Keep the current number, flow speed, times the time step, over the cell size below 1, and it works. Here's the real run. The pulse travels across the grid, smearing a touch from numerical diffusion, but stable. Push the current number past 1, and information is asked to jump more than a cell per step. The same detonation, the real solver tearing itself apart. That's the current Friedrichs-Lewis limit from our earlier video on why simulations blow up. And implicit, it rides straight through a current number of 2 without flinching. Stable, but look closely, the pulse is badly smeared, which is exactly the catch worth naming. So which wins? It's a trade, and the real unit is total work, cost per step, times number of steps. Explicit gives dirt cheap steps, but stability and the physics force a step small, so you take a great many. Implicit makes every step expensive, a solve, yet lets you take big ones, so you take far fewer, 6 instead of 80, in what we just watched. Which way it nets out depends on the goal. Driving to a steady state, most runs the simple family. You don't care about the path through time, only the destination. So you go implicit and push a huge step to blast a convergence. Resolving fine, fast physics, large eddy or direct simulation, acoustics, a compressible density-based solver, you already need a tiny step for accuracy. Explicit stability ceiling isn't the binding constraint, and you skip the matrix solve entirely. One honest caveat, and you already saw it. Implicit's unconditional stability buys you stability, not accuracy. Take a giant step and the answer stays bounded, but it smears the very physics you were trying to capture. Stable is not the same as right. That's all for this video.